Can legacy sequels be a quality movie and also make a lot of money at the box office? Today, I'm watching The Devil Wears Prada 2, and we're going to find out. I'm IndianJones, and this is a Pocket Watch review, where I watch movies without knowing the runtime and count how many times I check my watch to see if a movie's gas or ass. I'm actually more excited for this movie than you'd probably expect, unless you know me and how much I love Anne Hathaway, then you probably already know that I'm very excited for this movie. It's going to be Anne Hathaway's year. She's got a lot of movies coming out, and don't worry, I'll be there in theaters for every single one. Actually, that's a lie. I already missed Mother Mary, but that had a limited release, so I'll have to catch it on streaming, but I will. But the rest of her slate this year is pretty packed. We have The Devil Wears Prada 2, obviously, and then The Odyssey in July. Following that, we have Flowervale Street coming out in August, which is going to be a sci-fi thriller with dinosaurs and Ewan McGregor.
Hello there.
We also have Verity in October, starring her and Dakota Johnson, which is adapted from the Colleen Hoover book. I feel like all these books are mom bait, but I think I'm going to be watching this one for obvious reasons. Maybe I'll even read the book before this one, we'll see. And then to close out the year, we have Alone at Dawn, a military drama by Ron Howard, starring Anne Hathaway and Adam Driver. That could be pushed to the start of 2027, but still such a busy year for her. All right, other than Anne, the cast is still very stacked. Obviously, we have Meryl Streep, who's in GOAT contention.
She can do anything.
And we have Stanley Tucci, who's always fun to watch, with Emily Blunt reprising her breakout role. The last time I watched the first movie was actually at the United Palace in New York City when I was living there, and Lin-Manuel Miranda did a screening of it and had Meryl Streep do a mini Q&A, so that was super cool. It definitely enhanced my experience, but no matter where you watched it, you can't deny that the movie is sharp, witty, and just overall fun, and the parody that it's doing of Vogue and the parent company Condé Nast in general, all while still having a decent amount of depth to all the characters. Although in the original, you can't deny it must have been really annoying for the characters to have to deal with someone like Andy who walks in all bright-eyed and clueless. Anyways, let's get to my Pocket Watch predictions. I'm predicting this movie will have a runtime of an hour 50 minutes, 1 minute longer than the original. I'm also predicting I'm going to check the time once during this movie. Let's see how it goes. Off to the movie.
We come to this place for magic.
Okay, I'm back from the movie. I predicted the runtime would be an hour 50 minutes, but it ended up having a runtime of an hour 59 minutes. That's tough. I was so close, but I'll take it within 10 minutes. Also predicted one Pocket Watch check, and I was wrong. There ended up being 2 Pocket Watch checks. The 2 times I checked were about an hour in and then only 20 minutes later at the hour 23 minute mark. All right, if you haven't seen the movie yet, we're getting to spoilers, so don't complain if you get spoiled. The first check happened when we find out that there are going to be layoffs at Runway after BJ Novak takes over for his dad after his dad dies. Also, did anyone else burst out laughing when his dad died at his own birthday party? I know it's theoretically not funny, but the way they showed it happening was pretty hilarious. We knew something was going to come up that prevented him from making Miranda the new head of content, but I'm not going to lie, I didn't expect it to be death, like right before he was going to make the announcement. It felt a little bit cartoonish. Anyways, the second time I checked was when we get the reveal that Emily Blunt only orchestrated the sale to her current billionaire boyfriend so she could take over the magazine rather than Miranda keep running it, which I thought was the most obvious twist ever. I had to check the time when that happened because I knew the movie had to start wrapping up after that. Overall, this movie was a lot of fun, and any time I get to spend with these characters is obviously going to be a blast. As far as legacy sequels go, I feel like this was done pretty tastefully, and honestly, even though this is a nostalgia bait movie, there were more than a few lines here that are able to stand on its own and actually made me laugh out loud. One of them was Stockholm Called, they want their syndrome back. That was pretty funny. And then 2 lines that Meryl Streep dropped I thought were pretty great. One was, "Oh no, where is Amari? Has she been trafficked?" That killed me. And then she had one more cutting, serious line in her confrontation to Emily. "You're not a visionary, you're a vendor." Damn, that. Yeah, fire. Other than that, all the cameos were pretty good. I didn't feel like they were out of place, really. I do wish we actually got to see Hugh Jackman, though. The Karl Anthony Towns cameo was pretty cool, too. I actually do really like him off the court, just not on it. One cameo that didn't land well with me, though, was the Lady Gaga one. For some reason, that just felt a little bit forced. And at the end of the day, this movie does try to say something new, and I respect it. It addresses the current state of journalism and how it's losing its integrity with big companies that are taking over and trying to maximize profit while inevitably compromising on the integrity of the company as a whole. But that brings me to my biggest issue. A lot of the plot and dialogue felt very surface level. It gave us some breadcrumbs and general ideas to latch onto, but other than that, it felt like this was the equivalent of like a Mario movie for adults and fans of the original. Obviously, that's a bit harsh, but it does rely on a lot of nostalgia and making jokes or references to the original rather than trying to actually fully lean into the current state of the world with our existing characters. My main issue is that the successful critique it does make on the state of journalism is also very surface level. Sure, it's a huge deal that we're losing creativity and freedom of speech and press because everything's so tied to ads, brands needing to get their content or products in front of people, whether it's labeled as an ad or not. And this definitely sheds light on that, which is great. But haven't fashion magazines always been that type of company? Is that something new in the fashion industry at least? I don't know. BJ Novak also ends up taking over the company from his dad after his dad dies and immediately wants to start cutting costs and even shutting down Runway and the whole magazine section of the company completely. Part of the cost cutting comes with no more private cars and no more business class tickets, which is hilarious and over the top. It honestly reminded me of the news coming out about the Portland Trailblazers' new owner who doesn't want to pay his interim coach, Tiago Splitter, who had a great season, or how he doesn't even want to pay for late checkout at hotels for his players. But because of all the cost cutting, the initial solution of this movie ends up being figuring out a way to sell the company from billionaire 1, BJ Novak, someone who doesn't really care for the company, to billionaire 2, a tech Jeff Bezos, Musk type of guy who you just know there was going to be some underlying scheme for why he really wanted to buy it. And all that is fine because I thought the movie would come to a better solution once they figured out that the tech billionaire only wanted it to make Emily the head of the magazine instead of Miranda. But the actual solution ends up being selling the company to his ex-wife instead, billionaire number 3, because she will theoretically let Miranda and company do whatever they want still without cutting any costs. Which is fine, but in my opinion, it's still a bit of a cop-out since you never know what pressures a billionaire will push on you down the line, even if everything is okay in the short term. For me, a more meaningful ending would have been Miranda and Andy leaving the company altogether and letting Emily Blunt run it, either successfully or into the ground, while they opened an independent company that's actually free to do what they want. Another issue with this movie is that they wanted to get the band back together, but after 20 years, people are going to be in different locations, so it's so hard to get them all back in one spot, and it felt like we were shoehorning Emily Blunt in at random points. The movie both wants you to feel like 20 years has passed since we've seen all the characters, but also like no time has passed at all, and that it's believable that these guys still have a great dynamic. How long was Andy even working at Runway the first time? It doesn't really seem believable that these relationships were formed in such a short time. I think she was only there for a year. Do we think Stanley Tucci actually kept in touch with Andy all this time? He says he put in a good word for her at the end of the movie, but it didn't seem like they were in touch between the first movie and now, even though at the end he does say, "Forever my girl." The same thing happened with Emily Blunt's character, kind of. She supposedly reached out at the end of the first movie to Andy wanting to be friends, but it just didn't work out. So 20 years later, they're out here rekindling. I mean, I respect it, I guess. For me, it feels like the sequel operates knowing the first movie was a huge success, and even though the main characters have only known each other 1 year in universe, we as an audience have seen them interact with each other over and over on rewatches. That brings me to another issue. It really felt like they destroyed Miranda's character. I get that they were trying to show that she was struggling with this modern era, but Miranda didn't seem like she was really trying to adapt to it at all. There were so many scenes of her bumbling around, not able to hang up her own coat, or scenes where it seemed like she was just giving in to the demands of other people. She's supposed to be this titan of the fashion industry, but now is out of her depth in a world that's moved on from her strengths. And it seems like both the audience and Andy are meant to think that Miranda has a plan or something up her sleeve to show that she's been ahead of the game the whole time. It feels like she should always be calculating and learning behind the scenes, moving the chessboard with intentional moves without being too flashy as she's adapting. But apparently she wasn't doing any of that, and she was just which I guess could have been an intentional choice and them showing the harsh reality of life and being from a bygone era, but then you would have expected them to hone in on that a little bit more, so it feels like they did neither option. So that was pretty frustrating. It seemed like she was a shell of herself. Also, there were moments where she softened up way more than I expected Miranda would. Once in the kitchen when she told Andy that she was getting promoted, and then also later in her confrontation with Nigel. The Nigel interaction at least felt pretty valid and necessary, but telling Andy that she knew Andy would be great seemed like overkill after 1 year of knowing her and 20 years of no contact. Outside of the big issues I had with this movie, I did have some general nits to pick, as Bill Simmons, the Podfather, says. For one, it wasn't that visually interesting. There were lots of drone shots here and there, but nothing crazy, and it felt like the color grading and editing made it seem like it was like a TV show like Suits rather than something for a theatrical release. Also, what was the love story bit with Anne Hathaway and the Peter character? I liked that Andy was independent and happy, but it felt like they threw in the Peter character for no reason. We could have been okay with cutting him from the whole plot. I don't think he added anything at all. And my final nit, I think Andy really does have Stockholm Syndrome. She gets offered $300K to write a book about a boss she had for 1 year who was always shit to her, but turns it down because she feels bad. It also didn't make sense. She's a talented writer and could have had jobs anywhere. I don't know why she chose to go back to Runway. Was it just to please Miranda and show her how well she's doing now? But I guess her also wanting to save Miranda and the company in general comes from her actually getting paid really well compared to her other jobs. I think she's getting double, which is honestly a pretty good reason. Before I get to my final rating, shameless plug, if you're still here and like my content and want to keep seeing more stuff like this, comment, like, follow, subscribe, whatever. IndianJones Online across all platforms. This movie was a lot of fun, and I think it'll do really well at the box office. I went the first Friday it came out, and the theater was packed with everyone honestly dressed pretty well compared to normal movie theater attire, so that was kind of cool to see. I think anyone who's a huge fan of the original and wants to revisit their favorite characters and see what they've been up to will come out very satisfied. If you look at it as a standalone movie, I think there was a lot of room for improvement or adding depth. For me, this was a 3 out of 5. That's a wrap on this episode. Peace.